We are slaying monsters.
Don't let the ghosts and the ghouls disturb you, darling.
So when I was reading up on the monkeys, apparently there is a Nat Geo sort of like reality TV style documentary called hold on. Yes, they're called the Galta Gang. It's a monkey 60 monkeys that live at the Galta temple outside of Jaipur, and National Geographic made a reality TV series documentary about them called The Monkey Thieves. You can watch it, which I think I definitely have to now.
Is that the same one where I watched one when I was looking up monkeys, and it was like this strange narrated piece that followed a war between two factions of monkeys? And it was so weird. The monkeys will fight today. Some may live, but some will die.
Wait, like war, as in they
Two
pre-decided?
gang war.
Like they were like, no, today's the day we are going to war.
Yes.
Holy shit.
They like gathered in a place, and they were like, if the monkeys take the road, if the whatever gang takes the road, then the others will be lost. And it was so sad because at the end there were some dead monkeys on the ground, and it made me so sad. I'm like, you fuckers.
It's why I can't watch Planet Earth.
I know.
Because they just talk about it. They're like, and the deer will die. And I'm like, I don't want the deer to die.
I know. Do something. You're sitting there with your fucking camera with your thumb up your ass. Do something. I mean, I know it's nature. You got to let nature take its course. But at the same time, it's like, do not let the little baby lion cub die. I will fucking murder you.
I can't watch them. I mean, they're so beautiful and I love watching them. But then when the chase scene starts, I'm like, oh God, oh God.
I know. I can't do it. Can't do it. The monkey battle was pretty intense. So anyway, that was what I saw. But
it takes a particular type of documentarian who can just watch that happen and then go home and cut it and be like, I don't know. I mean, you're probably affected by it, but to come in with that attitude and be like, well, I'm going to watch animals die today is not something that's not part of the business that I want to be involved in at all.
And the narrator always has this like NPR like placidity to their voice. It's just like, and the babies have been separated by their mother. They will surely die. And I'm like, what the fuck?
David Attenborough, he's really mastered it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've all taken on his affectation.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's like the documentary Free Solo.
Oh, yeah.
I love
one.
Free Solo.
It's a great one, but the part where they talk to the camera guys and are like, how are you feeling? And they're like, well, I am worried that I'm just going to film someone dying and have to just keep filming.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the psychological impact of that, like, holy shit. You might film this guy die today. Man, oh my God. We're going hard on this. Oh God. The death that's gonna surround us today.
We are going to talk about some ghosts. So you don't get ghosts without things dying. It's just a fact of the genre.
It's true. And also, let's throw this out up front too. There is going to be a little talk about suicide today. So if that unsettles our audience at all, you may want to just skip this episode, move on. We got a lot of other series that are a little bit more lighthearted. We'll talk about ghosts and things, but yeah, just letting you know.
Maybe we can also say it right before we start talking about it.
Totally,
so if you want to listen to the episode and skip that part, you can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We are slaying monsters. We got Matty J across the table.
Yo.
And Katie.
Hello.
And I'm EJ, and we are going to bring it home today. We're going to bring it to the fort. The Bhangarh Fort.
Part 2. The Curse of Bhangarh. Part 2. Oh, yeah. So in our last episode, we talked about the history of India's Mughal Empire and the founding of Bhangarh Fort. That was a military fortification, but it was also a palace and a village all kind of in one. A governmental seat in the Amber region of Rajasthan. Now, when the Mughal Empire fell, Britain's East India Company swooped in and took over the agriculture and the trade routes in the region, as they sort of did. But in doing so, they allowed several widespread famines to devastate the country. And that, combined with a series of dry monsoons, forced mass migrations and drove residents from their homes and towns. Bhangarh was one of the victims of this depopulation. By the end of the 18th century, the site was largely abandoned, and that left vacant buildings which slowly fell into disrepair. And it didn't help that the fear of bhutas, or ghosts, permeated the area. Bhutas, these are, the results of people who have died painful deaths, like those connected to these famines that India was experiencing. And they were attracted to abandoned places, like the structures that are now all over the foothills of the Aravalli Range in Bhangarh Fort. This period of Indian history is sometimes referred to as the Victorian Holocaust by historians. Mike Davis, a historian, says, "Millions died, not outside of the modern world system, but in the very process of being forcefully incorporated into its economic and political structures. They died in the golden age of liberal capitalism. Indeed, many were murdered by the theological application of the sacred principles of Adam Smith, Jeremy Bentham, and John Stuart Mill." This so-called Holocaust pushed Britain to finally implement the famine codes, a series of laws and regulations that helped to identify the potential for disasters and put preventive measures in place to rectify them. And that actually worked for a while. India remained largely successful and stable for several decades until World War II. Now, between 1942 and 1944, back-to-back events rocked India. You had Japan invading Burma, which drove up a population of war refugees toward the east. Bombing and raids and fighting on foot damaged rail lines and prevented crop distribution, caused chaos in the region. The threat of conflict between Britain and Japan destabilized India's economy and sent rice prices into chaos. Now, of course, the cost of food skyrocketed. The plantations themselves were hit with a fungal disease, and that resulted in a crop pandemic. That drove prices even higher. And now you had a population unable to afford food who saw their immune system starting to fail them because they weren't eating enough. You had dysentery, smallpox, cholera, and malaria tearing through the region. Once again, lots and lots of people died. Isn't this a happy episode so far?
Right, yeah.
By 1943, private charity and governmental relief efforts had reached the area. Money was distributed, but a good portion of it disappeared into black markets through governmental corruption. By the end of the year, India's rail lines were finally repaired, and the rice and grain started flowing again, effectively ending the famine. Now remember that this is India still mostly under British control. So Britain still is sort of running the economy of India. But critical response on these famines remains divided. Because it probably should have been Britain's responsibility to help this country take care of it, right? World War II obviously fucked some shit up. But India's leaders were unable, and when I say India's leaders, I mean the British Raj, were unable to help their citizens. Or maybe they just simply didn't care.
Yeah, sounds like they didn't care.
Yeah, same. Because I was going to say, I mean, clearly it's an entirely different place with a different economic system. So I don't want to make a direct comparison. But if you think about the UK, for example, where they had extreme rationing through the war. People were hungry, people were going on very little, but people weren't starving to death en masse.
Right. Yeah. In fact, talking about Winston Churchill and FDR, they had their hands busy with a global campaign, sure, but they also didn't send food to India. They supplied their own countries and their own troops. Rationing's the norm. The thing is, India was effectively a territory of the UK at the time, though.
Did the UK send food to the English in India?
Yes.
Okay. Not to aid the population of India, but just to help prop up their own government and make sure they were fed.
Yeah. They were still using the agriculture of India to supply the UK. Yes.
Yes, but okay. But my question is, if the UK was supporting its foreign forces across the globe that were involved in World War II and everything, was the UK also sending food to its people, its English people in India, or were the English people in India forced to starve too?
Oh, I see.
Figure it out.
I see what you're saying. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that. Okay. Yeah. If the famine was contained strictly to the Indian population of India, I don't have the answer for that.
I feel like in widespread famines, rich people are still able to get food because they can buy it from other places, or there still is food in lower quantities. So there's not enough for everyone. And the food that does exist is extremely expensive. So rich people are still usually kind of okay because there is still some food and they have the money to buy it. So I wonder if that was happening too. But again, that's just completely speculating.
Yeah, I know that there were famine relief efforts that happened, and I know that there was a lot of corruption that prevented those relief efforts, the money and the rations and that sort of thing, from making it to the general population.
Okay,
yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, that still happens today, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Humanitarian relief efforts are just thwarted partially by corruption. They don't end up where they're meant to go.
Yeah. It's a great opportunity for people to do very underhanded things, for sure. The 1943 famine had sweeping repercussions. You had an overstretched British military that's now stuck between a civil war between Hindu and Muslim populations in India. Rioting continued throughout the decade, with the Muslims demanding a home for themselves. By 1947, the tensions had become too much to bear, and Britain extricated itself from India, creating Pakistan in the process. A newly independent India started to make its way into the latter half of the 20th century. And one of the things that they started to become really invested in here was archaeological tourism. The Archaeological Survey of India, which had been established in the 1800s as a governmental body kind of preserving these ancient sites and doing excavations there, pushed for more preservation and for the archaeological popularity of tourism. Essentially, don't you want to come and see these older buildings? We're going to preserve them. We're going to encourage people to experience the history of their own country.
About what year was this?
This is probably the 60s, the 1960s at this point. Yeah. Through the 70s, it's basically been going on in the second half of the 20th century. One of their preservation projects was the Hill Forts of Rajasthan, which is a project that sought to highlight significant structures from the country's history. But although Bhangarh was actually a fort built into a hill in Rajasthan, it was absent from the half dozen or so sites that were scheduled for preservation. Although the Archaeological Survey does do excavations here, This fort feels like the forgotten little brother of the more popular forts, like the Amber Fort or the Chaitagar Fort. The hill forts even got a UNESCO designation in 2013, marking them as a World Heritage Site. But Bhangarh, again, was left out, even as recently as 2013.
Do you know why that is?
Well, not exactly, no. I don't know the Archaeological Survey's specific reasons for leaving Bhangarh off their list, no.
That's so weird.
It's weird.
I looked at it I was like looking at the pictures that you sent, Matt, and I also Googled it. And like, it's so big and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, they're all scared of it. That's where we're going. No.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, that's the rumors started because of this, because there were a lot of people just like us kind of being like, well, why would you leave this off your list? You know, could it be, I'm putting on my best Ancient Aliens voice here. Could it be that there was a reason that the Indian government wanted to keep tourists away?
It's Bhutas.
Yeah, right? Like, oh, is it the Bhutas? You know? And if you look, according to almost every single tourism website, all the ones that are like, oh, come visit this, they claim that Bhangarh is one of the most haunted sites in the world. And this is fascinating because this is different. I feel like this is different anyway. You know, if you look at Gettysburg, maybe Gettysburg in America will have a ghost tour listed on their website, but it's not like they're going out of their way to promote, oh, wow, the battlefield in Gettysburg is super haunted. But in Indian tourism, you do see this. You see the tourism boards, like the national tourism boards, promoting the haunted nature of Bhangarh.
That's such an interesting cultural difference that we have.
Yeah, I can't
cool.
even think. I'm even thinking of like cities where there's a lot of like haunting culture. So
Yeah.
New Orleans or
Boston, right?
Salem,
Something like that.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Salem, Charleston, South Carolina. And
Yeah.
yes, you can go on ghost tours in all of these places, but it's not like, except for maybe Salem, but Salem's more like witches, which makes
Right.
sense because it has a history of that. But you don't see it on the main website being like, come here, we have ghosts.
All right, so let's talk about some of the things that you can experience at Bhangarh. Yeah?
Yeah.
Are these listed on the website too?
No, these are not.
Things you might experience.
Disembodied voices. Yeah. So allegedly, tourists visiting Bhangarh will sometimes see shadowy figures darting down the halls between the buildings. They will hear disembodied voices echoing off the walls. They might hear children crying or the sounds of women in distress. Photographs taken at the site will sometimes capture mysterious orbs that the photographers can't see with their naked eyes. Basically, like all your standard ghost phenomena, right? But there are some cool individual haunting events that happen here too. Ghost investigators who have visited the site claim that the Bhutas like sweets. So if you bring candies or sweet pastries into the fort, they will either be stolen by the Bhutas or they will be destroyed, like crushed, melted, crumbled by the time you leave. Sometimes people don't even see it happen. They'll bring in something and then on the way out, they'll go to have like a piece of candy or something and it'll just be reduced to dust.
Like in their pocket or they leave it somewhere?
Either one.
Oh. Because in your pocket, that's more interesting. If you leave it somewhere, I have many obvious theories as to why the candy is crushed or missing.
Yeah, we'll talk about those a little bit later on when we talk about some of the interesting residents of Bhangarh.
Yeah, but in your pocket, that's a little weird. Especially if you don't remember, like, you know, crushing it.
Now, some visitors also claim to hear the sound of gungrus in the halls of the palace. Those are the anklets that Indian dancers will wear, the ones that are adorned with the bells. So you hear these, not just footsteps, but these jingling footsteps at different places. Now, we know that there was a haveli, or a residence for the dancers, who performed at the theater in Bhangarh. So it could be that. But also the rumors get associated with Princess Ratnavati. And they say that the sound of the jingling bells is her fleeing the sorcerer who's always in pursuit of her.
To hear those jingling bells like that sounds really creepy.
Yeah, because that's sort of footsteps, that could be a lot of different things.
Yeah, you can
right?
explain away a lot of this.
Yeah, but jingling bells are very much out of place.
That is weird. And also, like, are there still old bells somewhere in the fort? Which there could be, like, I don't know. But also, like, I feel like those ankle bells, like, they have a particular sound. It's not,
Right.
It wouldn't even sound the same as if, like, when you have, like a door, one of those doorbells, like on a door, when you open and you hit it and it jangles, like that also has its own particular sound. So I find it really hard to explain why you would be hearing bells.
It's more like a chain rattling sound. It makes me think of the old Victorian ghosts that were Jacob Marley roaming around covered in chains and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, of course, these hauntings make it a prime target for paranormal investigation groups. And that's compounded because the Archaeological Survey of India started closing down the site at 6 p.m. Very strictly enforced. Like, all tourists have to leave, like, make your way toward the gates half an hour before shutdown. And that started a whole bunch of rumors, too. Like, why are they so strict about this rundown site that they're not trying to preserve it, but they want everybody out of there?
It is pretty standard, though, to have things vacated at sundown, like parks, historical sites. So are we to assume that the other sites that are, within the UNESCO heritage, are they shut down at that time? Or, I mean, I guess you probably don't know this, but I'd like to know, like, if that's the general rule, or if it's, like, if they're making it weirder than it needs to be.
Yeah.
I suspect that all the sites are probably shut down at 6 p.m.
And the ghost hunters, the ghost hunting community is probably just like, this is weird, when really it's actually quite normal.
Right.
Probably.
Maybe you could say if it's a little weird if they're making people leave Bhangarh at 6, but say during the summer at other sites they're open till 8 or 9, when the sun is out later. But I agree with you, EJ. Like, it's also possible that tourist sites close at 6 p.m. in India.
Yeah.
Because it's a normal work day and everybody's going home. You can't stay there alone.
Right.
It's also worth pointing out that Bhangarh is very remote where the fort is located. So if you worked there, if you were a tour guide or worked, I don't know if they're not really concessions, but if you were a worker there, you would have a long trip to get home, and it would probably suck a lot to have to work until like 8 o'clock at night and be home at 10,
Yeah, I guess my other question there is how remote is Bhangarh compared to the other forts?
Oh, that's a good question, and I don't have the answer to that either. I can tell you that Bhangarh is 2 hours from the nearest city by car.
That's pretty remote.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah. There are like tiny little, maybe a restaurant here and there, but it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
If the other forts are closer to cities, it's possible the reason Bhangarh closes early is because tourists are very likely having to get into cars or buses and travel 2 hours back to where they're staying, because they're likely not staying anywhere close to the fort, local or otherwise, right? Like, even if they're Indians, not like people visiting from other countries. And it could be not just a safety at the fort precaution, but a safety precaution in terms of, like, you have to now travel far, so we make everyone leave, including, like, the workers. Just another reason as to why it might not be weird. It just might be practical.
Let's just say that the other forts do stay open later and this one doesn't, I think there's also a very logical reason as to why they would close early based on their location. But we can get into that later.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
You're ruining.
I'm not ruining anything.
You are ruining the ghost story I'm unfolding.
I'm sorry.
Here.
Oh, okay.
Because obviously, but no, the rumor, the popular rumor, especially as more and more ghost hunters start showing up at Bhangarh, is, well, they're closing it down because even the Indian Archaeological Survey is afraid of the Bhutas that are there. They're afraid of the curse. They're afraid that people that go there will be possessed, will be attacked by Bhutas, will leave cursed. That perception was further fed by the ghost boom of the 2000s. The turn of the 20th century saw a rising interest in the paranormal in India, much like here. Early 2000 was a golden age of scary movies, with 2003's Bhoot considered one of the greatest Indian horror movies ever made.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
We need to watch it then.
I know. I wasn't able to find it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Indian
cinema greeted imported movies with open arms, too. They loved the Conjuring franchise. It earned about $43 million in India.
Oh, cool.
Uptal Ucharya, who's a producer and distributor working with Sony and Fox in India, said, "The Hollywood horror factories have identified this region for their horror movies. Indians love good versus evil stories."
What about the Blair Witch Project? I feel like that was such an early 2000s classic, and I feel like it would really fit into the Bhuta genre.
Yeah, I don't know. That one I don't have information on, but yeah, that feels like a very, because it's kind of cursy too.
I never saw it. Full disclosure.
Oh, wow.
I saw it later and it wasn't as impactful. Like I saw it when I was way, old at that point.
Yeah, I feel like you had to really experience the Blair Witch Project then, but experiencing it then when you still didn't quite know if that was real or not was something special. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just the style too. I feel like we're used to that style now. And then it was totally wild that you would film a movie that way.
Yes, I think that's why I was impressed by it, but I wasn't scared by it because I was so used to that style. Like Paranormal Activity was the first one that I saw that was really I saw it in the theaters.
Oh, that terrified you. I remember that.
I was shaking by the end of the movie. I am really scared of horror movies, and now I'm not, but that movie kind of popped my horror cherry in a way. And I was just totally I need more of this. It was the first time I had spicy food as an adult, like a hot pepper. And I was like, yes, this hurts, but I want it. So it's
I also never saw Paranormal Activity because literally one of our friends described it to me at a bar. He was like, oh, I don't want to ruin it. I was like, don't you worry. I will not be seeing that movie. The trailer is terrifying to me. So just him explaining it to me, I had to sleep with the lights on for a couple of days because I was so freaked out. Okay. Yeah. This is why I don't watch those movies. Though I feel like what you're saying, EJ, I feel like maybe if I tried, it would get me over the edge and then I could watch them, but I never have forced myself to do that.
Yes,
so now
I know.
And now I just avoid.
I understand. I totally get it. It is like that. It's just jumping in the deep end. If you can do it, you can do it for all the other movies, and it opens up a whole happy world of horror. I love it now. I love horror now, and I'm just yeah. But I get it, Katie. There was a time when I couldn't watch any of it.
I remember when we saw Paranormal Activity and you were cold in the theater. Not cold from air conditioning. You were freezing next to me.
I was freezing and shaking.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I'm a little anxious talking about this right now.
Sorry. Katie's sleeping with the lights on tonight.
Yeah.
No, I have a partner now, so I can always just be like, are you over there? Though I guess that wouldn't help with Paranormal Activity because it's a couple. It wouldn't help at all.
It's actually worse if you're sleeping with someone.
Worse. Yeah. we're talking about the rise of this paranormal fascination in India, right? Going hand in hand with this, you have your fictional depictions. You got to get some quote unquote real life paranormal investigation too, right? Ghost hunting groups gained prominence in the 2010s in India, largely thanks to one researcher, the father of paranormal research in India, Gaurav Tiwari. Born in 1984, Tiwari dabbled in acting before moving to Florida to train in aviation. While he was studying there, strange events began happening in his shared apartment. He claimed to hear disembodied voices, and one of his roommates allegedly saw the spectral figure of a young girl standing in the doorway of their apartment. Ultimately, the activity became too much to bear, and everyone who lived there was forced to move out. Now, there's not a whole lot of reporting around this early part of his life. Given the high strain that Tiwari will eventually put himself under later, I don't think it's unrealistic to suspect that he pushed himself too hard during his aviation training. Overworking, he might have been actually experiencing hallucinations from lack of sleep or his heightened stress. But whatever it was that plagued him in Florida, he couldn't stop thinking about it. Even after he returned to India, he was obsessed with the paranormal. And so he turned his attention from aircrafts to ghosts and got ordained with the International Church of Metaphysical Humanism.
What? That's a thing?
It's a thing.
Cool.
It's a very new agey online church.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
You don't say.
They promote spiritual oneness and the idea that you control your own destiny. So it's not like a deity focused church.
Oh, that's cool.
It's kind of like secular human adjacent.
Cool.
They offer degrees in things like paranormal research, cryptozoology, and ufology. This stance, to me, ends up feeling, to me, a bit hypocritical because you take a secular view to humanity, but then you offer paid programs for Fortean science, and that seems a little bit shady. They're not accredited, by the way.
I was going to say, you mean the Catholic Church doesn't offer that? Pope Leo isn't like, come get your degree in UFOlogy.
The Catholic, this is a huge tangent to go down, but the Catholic Church's not investigation, but their response to UFOs is always kind of interesting to me because there's this whole aliens are angels tact that some people take. Mm-hmm. And I've already heard people saying oh yeah, Pope Leo is going to be the disclosure pope. He's the one we're going to get it under.
What?
Yeah.
Already?
Yeah.
What has he done? He's done
he hasn't done anything
to indicate that at all.
I don't know. Absolutely nothing. But people are just I think probably because he's American, they're yeah, the American's going to do
straight shooter.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you want to go and get your degree from the International Church of Metaphysical Humanism, it costs somewhere between $800 and $1,500, and you can pay them through PayPal. If you get it, if you get a degree in parapsychology, you become a certified EVP technician, and you get a photo badge that you can take on your investigations.
It's interesting that it's not a religious-oriented organization. I feel
not.
like so many of them are religious-oriented, demonology.
Or at least like adjacent, right? Religious adjacent.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's humanist.
It is interesting because I'm even thinking ghost adventures. I'm sure I could find this out if I looked it up, but I'm always curious because none of the ghost adventures guys strike me as actually being religious. Yet they're constantly talking about demonology and God and blessing the house. And I'm just but I don't think that you actually believe in this. So you believe in it just in this one little piece that it can get rid of ghosts. What?
This is always a fascinating thing to me because you believe in demons, I guess, but you don't necessarily believe in angels and God. You believe that a priest has some type of power to bless a house, and to exorcise a demon and stuff. But there again, you probably don't go to church every Sunday. Yeah, it's very strange.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think we can assume what is in the heart of Zach Bagans and his friends.
I wouldn't want to.
We just don't know. But I can tell you, I mean, Zach does have a cross tattoo on his finger. So he has a crucifix. So, I mean, I don't know. I think
guess.
that Zach is I think he's a believer in God. I really do. And I think that most of those dudes probably are. Because I think it's hard to not be a believer in God and be who they are and do all the things that they do. I mean, I think you can be a secular ghost hunter, but that seems to be, to me, a bigger stretch and a harder, like a greater lift than being a theistic ghost hunter, in my opinion. But I mean, that's just my opinion.
I understand. Yeah.
And I'm thinking of others, like, I've been rewatching Portals to Hell, and like, Katrina and Jack definitely do not invoke God in the same way at all.
No, they really don't.
So anyway, interesting. We're getting distracted again. Matt, where are we in our journey? The humanistic church.
Gaurav Tiwari was ordained by this organization, given field researcher status in their partner program, Paranexus. That is an anomalous research institute which claims to study the human condition through anomalous research, essentially Fortean studies, right? Used to be more of a collective, but seems like they've mostly been folded into the regular church these days. Doesn't matter. He used this authority that he had now. He was ordained by the church, and he had his degree working with this Paranexus company, and he conducted his own investigations. He's coming at this convinced that ghosts are real and that India is full of haunted places thanks to its history. And so Tiwari founded the Indian Paranormal Society in 2009. Like most ghost hunting groups, their aim is use advanced technology like Mel meters, tri-field readings, all that good stuff. That in what we call instrumental transcommunication to prove that there is life after death. Their investigations quickly caught the attention of the media. Remember, paranormal shit is like really, really hot in India right now. And Tiwari has an acting background. So he's good on camera. He knows how to present himself. He's the perfect face for this movement. In 2011, Tiwari was offered and accepted the role as a host on MTV India's Girls' Night Out. Each episode of this show featured 3 attractive women who joined Tiwari for a paranormal investigation.
Oh, that sounds like a cool premise.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, he took hot people around and they did ghost hunts.
Why haven't we done this in the U.S. yet? I feel like that feels like classic U.S. reality TV. Hot people doing stuff.
Yeah. On MTV, too.
I know.
Yeah. It was wildly popular, and it won an Asian television award its very first year.
Big Brother Haunted Edition. That's my pitch.
I love it.
That is actually a fucking incredible. Dude, you do a Big Brother, but you do it in a haunted house like Amityville or something.
That'd be a good narrative film. You know, like it's like a mockumentary style, like it's Big Brother, but it ends up being a fucking haunted house.
Oh, man.
Fuck. And they're in the diary room talking, and it's like they like hear something. It starts there.
That's a really great, and it's all kind of their cameras, right? Like the Big Brother cameras. That's a great idea.
Like Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Yes. And the question is, do you take it in like a horror direction, or do you take it in like a best of show direction?
That would actually be really great.
Best in show, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie so much.
What if it's kind of both? What if it's like Christopher Guest style, but it ends up being extremely horrifying? Like it's funny, kind of like Cabin in the Woods, where it's funny, but then it gets really fucked up.
I do love those where you start out one way and then you bend it, and because you throw the audience off, right? That you think that you're just here for kind of a comedy, lighthearted movie, and then it becomes more and more serious.
Yeah. Okay, somebody needs to fucking make this.
The other show that Tiwari appeared on was a show called Boot Aya. That's a documentary series about people's real-life experiences with ghosts. He also did guest spots on an 8-episode sci-fi channel series called Haunting Australia, which was hosted by Rob from Ghost Hunters International. Alongside all of these public appearances, Tawari continued to do smaller-scale investigations with his own Indian Paranormal Society. And he got to the point where he was actually training members of the IPS on proper investigative techniques, paranormal theories, principles, and disseminating this information. They traveled all over the country, and they ran a very active YouTube channel chronicling their exploits. Led by Tawari, the IPS conducted an overnight stay at Bhangarh Fort in 2012. I don't know how they got access because the fort closes at 6, and it doesn't seem like they allow a lot of paranormal investigation groups access, but somehow they got access. Throughout the course of their investigation, they used a K2 meter to check EMF readings, and they used spirit boxes to try to get EVPs. The thing is, when the IPS was there, their investigation was pretty largely unsuccessful, at least if we're talking about trying to capture evidence of ghosts. By the end, Tawari, who is now this prominent figure in the paranormal scene in India, he declared that Bhangarh wasn't haunted at all. And he would later tell members of the society that he believed it was haunted, quote, by the people. Not meaning by the ghosts of people, but by the stories that people told about it. Oh, wow. Essentially, the visitors, the government, made up stories of ghosts. In 2016, Tawari again joined MTV, this time on a show called He Ticket. Leading another group of very attractive young people, Tawari conducted a new experiment at the fort, the very first spirit board session in Bhangarh's history. Now, we've talked about spirit boards in the past, Ouija boards, right? Same thing. Claim that you can use these to communicate with the dead and that they'll spell out words. This practice, at least using a board sort of thing, we actually date this all the way back to the Song Dynasty, around 1100 AD.
No way, really?
Yeah.
Dude, I thought it was kind of a Victorian creation.
Well, so the idea of like the board in its current setup and using that to communicate dates to about the Fox sisters, right?
Okay,
like the Victorian spiritualism movement of the 1800s. But there's evidence of trying to do some type of text-based spiritual communication way back in the Song Dynasty.
Cool.
Yeah. Our modern spirit boards, we'll just take a little detour and talk about them for a second. They came into vogue when Elijah Bond patented the idea in 1890. Now, Bond himself is a really interesting figure. He was an ex-Confederate soldier from Maryland. After the Civil War, we saw this huge spike in spiritualism because, for one, a lot of people were trying to contact their dead relatives. Bond capitalized on this interest and called his board, this is true, the swastika board. Initially intended to get it patented and sell it, but he was denied his first patent based on the grounds that the idea made absolutely no sense and seemed like it was fake.
Why did he call it the swastika board?
The word swastika, I believe he was using the original Tibetan use of it.
It's a symbol that existed before the Nazis, and they've just completely made it so that you can't use it.
It's divinity and spirituality
interesting.
In Tibetan Buddhism.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a little Buddhist wall hanging on my wall. I had it in my room, and it actually had a swastika on it, but it was the Buddhist, it was the spiritual, obviously. Right. And my little kid brain was like, it's a Nazi symbol. And I was so angry that I don't know why I even had it, but I was like, I'm getting rid of this thing. And I got rid of it, and I felt so righteous about it, and I was so angry. And then years later I was like, oh, actually it was just a pretty little spiritual tapestry that I angrily threw out. I don't know. Yeah.
But I think it's hard, right? Because I feel like it has been so co-opted by that meaning and movement. So
Yeah, I didn't want anything even like resembling that shit in my room. So I was
Yeah.
just like, nope.
Yeah, I mean that's like anybody who has it that's like, no, it's a Tibetan symbol. Yeah, I mean you can't really do it anymore. It's the same way that you really can't name your kid Adolf.
No.
You know, like you can't do it. Some things are just not good.
it's too soon, everyone. It's too soon. The other thing I was going to say, I mean, I guess I could just Google it right now, but you used to see Ouija boards like all the time, like in the board game section
Yep.
of stores. And like, is
Yeah.
that still true? I'm Googling right now. I'm going to go.
Oh yeah, I mean they are made by, I believe, Parker Brothers.
Oh, yeah. It's like showing up on
Yeah, you
on
can buy 'em.
Target. Okay. I just like don't go to the board game section of stores very often anymore. So
So Elijah Bond, who had developed this board, he was denied the patent, but he really, really wanted to sell this board. So he traveled to Washington, D.C. and applied for his patent in person. And once again, when he told the patent officer what was going on, the patent officer just kind of looked him over and was like, no, dude, and denied him again. And so Elijah Bond said, well, I'll tell you what if I prove to you that this board works? And he put down the board and he's like, all right, put your fingers on. They put their fingers on the planchette. And the board spelled out the patent officer's name. And this blew the patent officer away. And he agreed to the patent.
So great.
that would be so freaky
Yeah.
if you're that patent officer and you don't know how it works.
Ultimately, just a couple short years later, Bond sold the company to William Fuld, who renamed the board Ouija. Fuld's trademarked boards skyrocketed in popularity, partly because Fuld deliberately sued all of his competition out of existence.
Oh, man.
By the way, do you know what Ouija means? Do you know why that name is used? So a lot of people, the common misconception is that it is a combination of the German and French words for yes, oui, and ja. It's actually based on a nonsense word that the board spelled out when a spiritual medium was using it in the late 1800s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Apparently the word actually, according to her anyway, means good luck.
It's fitting that the board is actually named after a nonsense bullshit thing that it did because the board is nonsense bullshit with people
Yeah.
like unintentionally pushing the little thing around. So
Yeah.
I kind
But
of love that is the patented name of it.
It is great.
Katie, you're saying that a mass-produced board made by a gaming company doesn't have metaphysical properties? Is that what you're saying?
It is what I'm saying. And I know what they would say is, well, no, of course the board doesn't. It's the human beings who are like allowing the spirits to enter them that give the board the metaphysical properties. But alas, it isn't true, folks.
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about this. It's the idiomotor effect, right? So basically, the small, very nuanced movements that you make when you have your fingers on that planchette are amplified by the planchette. It's the same as using a fishing rod. You know, if you hold a fishing rod, the lure at the end makes more pronounced movements than the tiny little movements that your hand does. And then, of course, you're taking a whole group of people who you sit down deliberately to do spiritual communication. You make them hyper-focused on their bodies. They're going to experience something like this.
At best. At worst, your next door neighbor who's across from you with her little hands on the planchette with you is moving it to say what she wants it to say in the most subtle way possible.
I mean, people do that shit all the time too. And again, not to get too far off topic, but we're all familiar with Zozo, right? Zozo, the Ouija board demon, the one that supposedly comes through when you use a Ouija board. The reason that Zozo is the demon is because the Z and the O are on complete opposite sides of the board. So when people are moving the planchette back and forth, they hit the Z's and the O's because that's the most common place that you land when you move all the way across the board. That's why that word always comes through.
I've only used one time.
Oh,
it was
really?
in broad daylight. outside my friend's house. It freaked me out so much that I was like, no, never again.
Did you get any response?
We didn't wait long enough. Her and I started using it. It started moving, and we were like, fuck this. We were like 13. We were like, I don't think so.
Not surprisingly, I think, the Ouija board that they used at Bhangarh did nothing, produced no results at all. In fact, those hot MTV people couldn't even get the planchette to move.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Meanwhile, Tawari set a doll nearby, which had been fitted with a static detection alarm. So anytime a static field passed over it, it would giggle. During the Ouija board session, the doll laughed several times. Now, that doesn't necessarily prove ghosts or anything else. It just proves that a doll, and not a porcelain doll, mind you, but a doll in fabric clothing, was conducting static. That freaked out these MTV people, and the editors did a really good job of making everything look super spooky.
Of course, also those freaking giggling dolls they use, they're so creepy. And they do it because dolls are creepy, okay? It is creepy to have a doll sitting there and then you make it do a little weird giggle. Like, yes, that's creepy.
Yeah.
You're manufacturing creepy. Anyway.
Yes.
going. Also, if there are ghosts there, this is one of the things that always gets me. Like, Bhangarh, right? I mean, I guess there were kids there, right? But a lot of the stories we tell are about Princess Ratnavati. They're about the sorcerer. Do you really think that this occult magic sorcerer sees a doll on the ground and is like, oh yeah, I'm going to make this doll fucking giggle? You know, like that's the way he wants to communicate with people?
Or even like
That's
go
true.
look at it. Like, I don't know.
Right,
I mean, I
yeah.
guess, because isn't the whole static thing, it's that like something enters its like next to it or something, or like touches it. That's what makes it giggle. Is that the whole theory?
Yeah, it's the same as electromagnetic frequencies that ghosts, I guess, depending on who you talk to, conduct static or conduct electromagnetic fields or something like that. Continuing to build this legend of Bhangarh, despite these continual like failures to find anything legitimate there were 2 movies in 2014 about Bhangarh. One of them was A Trip to Bhangarh, and it featured a Final Destination style curse where anyone who visited the fort was ultimately going to end with a very gruesome demise. That was a work of pure fiction, but it would become very disturbingly accurate just 2 years later. Now, we're going to take a moment. We're going to talk about suicide here. In July of 2016, Gaurav Tawari was found dead in his apartment. He'd gotten married just 6 months earlier. The cause of death was asphyxiation, and the assumption was that he hung himself with his wife's dupatta, or scarf. Tawari's death shook the Indian paranormal world. Rumors started to circulate, talking about how he had been struggling with spiritual attachments in his final days. His own father told the Times of India that his son had been struggling with and ultimately unsuccessful in trying to control the dark forces that were manipulating him. And, of course, the source of these attachments was his last investigation. He was the newest victim of the curse of Bhangarh Fort. Now, Tawari's grief-stricken wife was more measured about everything. She claimed he'd been under a tremendous amount of stress. The Hindu reported that Tawari's work had run out and his family had been struggling to make ends meet. He'd been under a lot of pressure to find a real job. A lot of his MTV connections weren't really coming through for him, and the strain was ultimately too much for him to bear. Siddharth Bantval, who had been a protege of Tawari's, took over the Paranormal Society. Following in Tawari's footsteps, Bantval tried to clamp down on the supernatural rumors. He went on an interview on The Haunted Show and he slammed the media for making up fabrications about this dark energy and pushing this story that Tawari had been cursed by Bhangarh. He said, "When I was there, nothing of this sort happened. There wasn't even a story." In Banfal's opinion, the rumors about Tawari's death were fueled by speculation. Thing is, it was sudden, right? Nobody knew what his personal life was, but he was this public figure. He was this renowned paranormal investigator. He seemed like he had a lot going for him. He had just gotten married, right?
Yeah.
All of these elements coalesced into a media firestorm of speculation and fear-mongering.
Nobody wants to believe that somebody is in pain.
Right.
Like, it's so easy to just be like, oh, it was ghosts. I see this so many times with people that take their own life. It's like maybe, and it's not always a ghost thing I'm saying, but I'm just saying it's really, everybody's always looking for another reason, but it's really hard to admit that people are just alone and they're in pain.
Mm-hmm. Well, we see people as being people who are famous. We see them as being successful, even though oftentimes fame doesn't necessarily mean money and that you can like survive. And it sounds like his whole family was relying on him. Like he must, maybe, I mean, I don't know, maybe he was making a lot of money at some point, but it's so interesting that his father said that, because maybe his father knew that he was struggling, like had depression or whatever, and was able to less shamefully speak about it in reference to like ghosts. But also I would imagine it'd be hard as his family if you think that perhaps he did this because he felt that you were pressuring him to like change in some way and he didn't want to, and so he decided to just leave instead, and like that would be a lot to handle.
And culturally, there is a real pressure for the man to be a provider.
It's in most cultures.
We can say that almost universally. And he had this career that was really successful. He was running this paranormal society, but a lot of his film jobs and his TV jobs dried up for a little bit. These things happen. Your shows get canceled and you have to live beyond that. And I think the pressures of, well, you got to find a job, you got to find a real job became too much for him. We saw in his early life when he was studying aviation how the pressure from that, I think anyway, caused him to first experience some of this paranormal stuff, or at least believe that he did. Mm-hmm. So I see him as being somebody who didn't have a great solution for when he was under stress.
Most of us don't.
Yeah. When it comes to these stories and the speculation, it didn't matter that Tawari himself had actually debunked Bhangarh just a couple of years before his death. If anything, I think that it exacerbated the stories, because he was now this investigator who defied this haunted place, and he paid the price for that.
In their eyes, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And that becomes a more juicy story, too,
yeah, definitely.
Now, signal boosted by Tawari's death and the rumors surrounding it, Bhangarh skyrocketed into fame post-2016. Paranormal investigators flocked there because they wanted to experience this curse for themselves. Visitors started leaving cigarettes and alcohol in one of the ruined homes as an offering for protection against the curse that had taken Tawari's life.
Why is it always cigarettes and alcohol? Like,
I don't know.
What? Alcohol, maybe I get. Like, I feel like it is pretty universally used as like a celebratory or like a special signifier for things, but like
sure.
Cigarettes, like it's not, I don't know, we're not like rationing in the 1940s, like
well, maybe they have a different significance in India than they do here.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, we wouldn't leave them here. Maybe we'd leave a cigar, like a nice cigar.
Yeah.
Maybe cigarettes are just kind of different.
I don't know.
Over there.
I don't know. It's super weird to me to be like, yeah, here's a pack of Camels.
I don't know. Camels are expensive though.
Cigarettes
are damn expensive.
But like, who are the people that you're presuming are ghosts there that they would want the cigarettes. Like, it's a specific offer for a specific kind of person.
It's true. It's very specific. Although I would be like, if I was a ghost and I could actually interact with the world and there were no repercussions, like health repercussions, I would be smoking a pack a day and drinking all that I could just because I could.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I always say, like, when people ask dumb questions and like one of them is like, oh, if there were no repercussions, like what vice would you have? And I always say smoking.
Oh, do you really?
I think it looks so cool. It's because I grew up in the 90s. Cool. It just, I'm like, smoking is cool. Yeah. Of course, it's terrible for you and it's disgusting.
I would just eat a whole bunch of sweets.
You would. Matt's is the cutest one. Matt would buy donuts at the grocery store.
Yeah, Matt's like ice cream for every meal.
Among these new paranormal investigators coming to the site was Jay Alani, who's the founder of the Paranormal Company. Since 2010, Alani had devoted himself to traveling the country as kind of a de facto ghost buster. In addition to investigating haunted sites, he responded to exorcisms, possessions, and the occasional occult magic ritual. But he approached this with a very skeptical outlook. In fact, he told Vice, "I've investigated hundreds of cases, been questioned by the police for trespassing, even attacked by animals, but I have still never come across any actual paranormal presence."
Oh, that's interesting. So he's very famous, but he's completely I don't think this is real because I've tried looking for it every which way.
Yes.
Dude, so many of our American ghost hunters, if they were there, would be like, yep, it's haunted. Yep, it's haunted.
Oh, yeah.
They hear a creak and they're like, it's haunted.
I know.
We're I feel like these guys are so much more skeptical.
They really are.
I really love it.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about this. We talked about it last episode, but it really annoys me with the oh, it's haunted. I'm like, y'all go to old houses all the time. You know that that's not true. I grew up in a house that isn't even that old. I mean, it's a little old. It's 130 years old now. So it's pretty old.
That's old.
It's old, but it creaks all the damn time. It's just settling because nothing is even. Literally no things are even in that house.
Man, our house is from the 1930s and it creaks all the time.
Oh my God, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about Jay Alani is that he'll actually put himself directly in the path of the supernatural if it's there, just to see, is it real? In an interview he had on the Ranveer show, he talked about an encounter with a magician. And this magician claimed that he could kill anyone with a curse. And so Alani contacted him and said, "Hey, I want you to kill somebody for me." The magician was like, "Okay, cool. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'll kill somebody." And Alani was like, "I want you to kill Jay Alani." And so, yeah, I mean, he asked this magician to kill himself under an assumed name. So they did this very extensive ritual that he had to be present for, and he did all of the things that the sorcerer wanted him to do. And at the end of it said, "All right, Jay Alani will be dead within 3 days." He still tells that story years later.
Did he ever tell him it was me the whole time?
I don't know what the conclusion of that was. Yeah.
'Cause I fucking would.
On day 4, call him up and be like, "Hey, so I'm still alive."
Uh-huh. I'd be like, "Still here, motherfucker."
In addition to all of his boots on the ground work, his paranormal company also runs a hotline that people can use if they believe they're under attack by ghosts or if they've been possessed or something like that. He fields the calls through WhatsApp, and he will even visit you if it's necessary. He's seen exorcisms, claims of demonic activity, and endless scams. His company even employs a team of mental health providers on call to help these people understand what's really going on.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
EJ, you say this every time when we talk about ghost adventures. Clearly these families are under duress.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's in a lot of these ghost shows.
Yeah.
Like, it's obvious that they're just having psychological problems.
Grief does weird things to people.
It does.
Yeah.
And when you don't have a strong mental health foundation and you tend to believe in those things, it's just a recipe for disaster. So it's really good that this guy is so, he thinks about this stuff.
Yeah, he actually, I mean, there was a person who, a guy called him up and thought that his wife was a witch. And he referred that guy to a psychologist
Good.
to help them understand your beliefs are false.
Good.
Yeah.
Or, maybe he does think that because he has like schizophrenia or like bipolar disorder or one of these other disorders that makes you like when you go into an episode get totally freaked out about things that normally wouldn't bother you.
Yeah, so many people need help. It's good that he's doing that.
He investigated Jailani. He investigated Bhangarh multiple times. And he echoed Gaurav Tewari's conclusions and said, Bhangarh is haunted by people. It is the most commercial haunted location in India. And he also pointed out that thousands of people visit Bhangarh every day, and only a fraction of that percentage experience anything paranormal. And even those are likely the result of confirmation bias. You're going to a location that's claimed to be cursed. Anything that happens there, it isn't an isolated incident there. It's the curse of Bhangarh wreaking havoc on you. Just because some bad stuff happens when you visit a place doesn't mean that that place is cursed. He said, I love this quote, "We are here to tell realities to people, to make the world a better place." In 2024, the paranormal YouTube show Bootbusters investigated Bhangarh. Their team, Aryan and Ashwarya, attempted spiritual communication in several of the fort's rooms, both at day and at night. They actually, they don't directly say this on the YouTube video, but they had somebody who snuck them in at night. They were unsuccessful with their spirit box, but they did get responses with a flashlight when using the flashlight test. You guys, you're familiar with the flashlight test, right? Essentially, you
It's
take
one of
a
my
flashlight,
favorite ones.
you unscrew the element till it's just barely making a connection, then you set it down somewhere.
Yep.
And then the ghosts are going to come along and apparently like turn the flashlight on and off to communicate, right?
One of my favorite ghost hunters, OG ghost hunters,
Yeah, they did this. Yep.
Yep, they did that a lot, but one of my favorite ones is they were at some farm in Pennsylvania that was like a Brandywine.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
And they had a long conversation with a ghost, theoretically, in like an ice house using the flashlight method. And because OG ghost hunters, that kind of stuff didn't happen very often, it was like kind of wild.
Yeah. What do you think about the flashlight test?
It's completely unreliable, from what I hear.
It's sensitive to movement, and so any movement that is on the ground or is going to trigger the flashlight.
That's absolutely true. But there's also something called thermal cooling.
Oh.
So think about this. Flashlight, when it's on, it gets hot. So if you have this element just barely making contact, when the element gets hot, it's going to expand and connect, and then the flashlight turns on. At this point, it stays on until it cools enough that the metal contracts, and then the flashlight turns off. So the flashlight test is very effective in cold environments, like an ice. What was it, Katie?
I think they were in an old ice house. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it wasn't
in an ice
functioning
house.
anymore, but I'm sure it was cooler in there because that's what it was built to do, which is keep cold air in.
Yeah, so by the very nature of it, it expands, contracts, turns on, turns off.
Okay.
Thermal heating and cooling. Just a really cool physics
That is
loophole.
cool.
As part of their investigation, the Bootbusters wanted to test if ghosts will actually eat or destroy sweets that were brought into the fort. So they purchased 4 ladus, which are small spherical pastries, and they carried them around in an unopened box during their investigation. On their way home, when they opened the box, One of the pastries had been reduced to crumbles, and the other 3 were intact. I don't really think that that's evidence of a ghost. I think that's probably just evidence that they jostled the box around during their investigation and crushed one of the pastries. But during their time there, I think they might have discovered the source of the stolen pastry legend. Because there was a point where they left a water bottle out, just outside while they were investigating one of the buildings. And when they returned, they found a rhesus macaque had opened the bottle of water and poured it out on top of a stone and was drinking it. Rhesus macaques are notorious in that region. In fact, we talked about this at the beginning of the show. In 2021, there was a National Geographic documentary series called Monkey Thieves, which followed the habits of the monkeys there. They're so populous, and they've learned, living in close quarters with humans, how to ransack bags and backpacks looking for goodies.
They're troublemakers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you talk about the issues in Delhi with them?
No.
Well, in Delhi, they are very famous for sort of wreaking havoc on government workers' property, stealing phones, lunches, destroying the paperwork, like break into the offices, and like fuck up with the paperwork. And it's very cute, but also very awful. And a lot of the government officials apparently aren't really bothered by them. But the authorities have like taken tactics to get rid of them. One of them being introducing langur monkeys to scare away the macaques. But animal activists aren't kind of put a stop to that because it required the langur monkeys to be like caged and kept, you know, to just for that one purpose.
Also, doesn't that create the whole like old woman who swallowed the spider or swallowed the fly problem? Then you introduce the langur monkeys, and then the langur monkeys take over, and then you have like a whole other problem.
Well,
Yeah, like a whole issue.
I was reading about this. Apparently, the reason they introduced the langur monkeys, hold on, I want to get the phrasing right. Langur monkeys have a more relaxed disposition and have less threatening interactions with humans. So they introduce them because they scare away the other monkeys, and they're like more chill, so they're not going to be such assholes once they become dominant. But I'm just like, that's so funny. Less threatening interactions, because rhesus monkeys are like, they're like, we don't give a shit. We're coming in here.
Yeah, we're gonna fuck up your shit. And the langur ones are just like, what's up, dude?
Yeah.
How you doing?
What's up? I'll fuck up your monkeys for you. I'm just going to chill. The best thing I read that was the most entertaining was that a group of talented monkey impressionists were actually hired to scare the rhesus macaques away. But though successful for a moment, the rhesus monkeys returned as soon as the impressionists left.
Of course.
Wait, so there are people whose job is to impersonate monkeys?
Yeah, they were paid to come in and impersonate the monkeys and scare them away.
Wow, dude.
I know. I would like that job. That'd be a fun job, personally. But, yeah.
I think what we're learning is we think that we're so above it all. And the thing is, we're not.
We're not. We are bested by monkeys.
We are bested by monkeys. I mean, unless someone just goes out and starts killing them. But, like, we're not going to do that, and we shouldn't.
No, we should.
No, definitely not.
But I'm just saying that it's funny.
It is funny.
Like, God damn it. Stupid monkeys. They're not stupid. That's the problem.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're not stupid
They're very
at all.
smart. Yeah.
Also, what a great excuse at work. They're like, EJ, so how come I didn't see that report this morning? You're like, oh, I guess the monkey destroyed it.
Oh yes.
So what are we saying? The monkeys are taking the candy?
Yeah, I think given because they're extremely dexterous too, right? So I think yes. The monkeys are, you leave something unattended, the monkey will go through your bag and will take the sweet thing, but not necessarily, the bag of salty chips or something that you have. That's why they're specifically devoted to the sweet stuff. In the end, the Bootbusters' investigation of Bhangarh came up empty. In a later interview, Ariane said, "People make up shit, dude. You go there, ask the locals, and they will tell you it's a tourism scheme by the government. On the tourism board of Rajasthan, Bhangarh and Kuldhara are listed as haunted places. Official government tourism board. There are tours because it draws money.
But they don't let them investigate at night.
Yeah, so why are there strict rules like that? I think it has less to do with ghosts and more to do with wildlife. Not thieving monkeys this time, but something much, much more dangerous. In 1958, the Alwar state reserved about 340 acres. It's about 880 square kilometers in Rajasthan as a wildlife sanctuary. The southern border is 37 kilometers, about 20 miles from Bhangarh. That helped to preserve the natural beauty of the site and provide a home for some of the native species. That includes our monkey thieves, sure, but it also includes tigers. By 1979, India's conservation effort incorporated the land into a tiger and big cat sanctuary. Over the next 2 decades, a total of 16 Bengal tigers were relocated into that region, and they lived there in the rainforest. They also moved other big cats there too, leopards, hyenas, and the caracal, the one with the long pointy ears that looks kind of like a Dr. Seuss character.
Yeah, they're cute. Now, they brought hyenas to India? Are they Indian?
I think they were native hyenas.
I didn't know they
Yeah.
had hyenas in India, too. Okay.
They named this the Sariska National Park, and they offer safaris for people who want to go and see the animals. So now you have a population of big cats living less than 25 miles from this huge tourist destination. You want to guess what a tiger's range is?
I know because I looked it up.
What is it?
Katie should guess.
I
Katie,
don't know.
guess.
Okay. I mean, I imagine it's large. I'm going to say like 100 miles radius.
DJ?
I read about, you said 20 miles. I read it depends on the gender of the sex of the tiger.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think males have about 20 to 25 miles
Yep.
and females are 16.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about
Like in a day or just like
territory.
territory? Oh, okay.
Yeah. About 25 miles at the high end, or the exact distance from the Sariska National Park to Bhangarh. Mm-hmm. It's actually even more frightening because the tigers, they don't always remain in the sanctuary. In 2004, no tigers were sighted in the region. The Rajasthan Forestry Department concluded that they had migrated because of monsoons. But a year later, in 2005, they didn't come back. They went somewhere else, and to this day, we still don't know where all of those tigers went.
And I think you told me there are no fences, right?
There are no fences.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was reading a little bit about this park, and so they assumed they migrated out, but they weren't sure. So like reintroduced tigers back to the park,
Right.
and now there's like 30 tigers in the park or something as of last year.
Yeah. Yeah. Over the next decade or so, they repopulated the tigers back in. Now there's a bunch of tigers living there. But as recently as last August of 2024, a tiger escaped from Sariska. That cat was titled ST-2303, and it attacked at least 5 people before it was apprehended. Those attacks were enough to cause mass panic and shut down local schools while the forestry department hunted down the tiger. So I think those implications are pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
Bhangarh, it's a stone's throw away from the tiger reserve, and it's very dangerous.
Well
Now-
within the territory.
Yeah, it's not dangerous from ghosts. You don't want to be there after dark because there might be fucking tigers there.
And they hunt at night.
Yeah. Think about this, too. By day, it's full of people. It's full of tourists. They're eating, they're drinking, they're leaving trash, right? That attracts scavengers. You have your monkeys, but you also have rats, vultures, you know? Those attract the larger predators, like tigers, like leopards. In addition to the dangers of local wildlife, there's a human component to this as well. And that stems from the phenomena of legend tripping. We've talked about this a little bit in the past, but as a location builds a reputation of being haunted or being cursed, that encourages people, locals and tourists, to go there and experience it for themselves. And that building mythos provides a very fertile ground for occultism. Because, look, people don't perform spirit board sessions or attempt EVP communication at their local, like, Pizza Hut, right? You go to a haunted site or one where spirits are. You go there. That's where the power is. And Bhangarh has become that site as well. People have reported finding the trappings of occult magic rituals there, like salts, oils, remnants of fires, all these kinds of things. So people come there to perform rituals. Then tourists find the evidence of those rituals, and they use that as evidence that the place is cursed. But the people are only performing the rituals because they think the site is cursed. This circular logic is the backbone of legend tripping. Soon, it doesn't matter what the actual history of the place is because it's become so infiltrated by its own mythology. And that mythology can serve another purpose, too, for a whole different group of people. In his interview with Vice, Jay Alani said, "Sometimes these abandoned locations are not haunted, but actually hiding spots for local criminals." So in my own research, I came across several different tourism message boards that confirmed Bhangarh has become a sanctuary for drug users. One group investigated overnight and posted on Reddit. Moreover, the stupid rule of no visitors post 6 p.m. has rather turned the place into a favored site for junkies and drug addicts. We came across numerous syringes and other drug-related paraphernalia. Not encountering a junkie itself, I suppose, was just plain luck.
I'd be so scared to get there at night as a ghost investigator or a junkie or anybody, because I'd be so scared that there'd be a tiger that would kill me.
A tiger, other like weird people that you'll like.
I know.
It's one thing if you're like the Indian Paranormal Society, where it seems like they actually had access. So I'm sure it was like TV set.
They did it officially.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, you know, you have people who've cleared the region or who are watching or whatever. I don't know. Like, I just don't have it in me to be one of those people who's like, let me go to this random place at night where like there might be people who are struggling or doing things they shouldn't be doing, who are there for nefarious reasons. Like, I don't want to interrupt that shit. You do you, but like that's not something I want to like happen upon.
No way.
You just you show up there and you have your little like EVP at your spirit box and you're like, sorry guys, continue with your drug deal. I'm just gonna go over here and see if I can get some spirit voices.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure that ends well.
No. And you don't want to run into a tiger. Like, Jesus fucking Christ.
On top of that,
like, no,
right?
thank you.
Oh my God.
That would be so scary.
So where does this all leave Bhangarh Fort? Supposedly one of the most haunted locations in the world. The ruins of a once majestic site were the perfect fodder and backdrop for a rising fascination with ghosts and the paranormal. The true history is full of tragedy. We have stories of wars, famine, colonialism. But it's fascinating to see this dark history be transformed into a modern mythos. I personally don't think there's a curse on the site, really. I suspect that if you take any other 400-year-old plot of land anywhere in the world, you'll be able to find all kinds of badness associated with it. But Bhangarh is significant because it's still there. Despite everything, the wars, the famines, the curses, the challenges of the modern world, Bhangarh is still a very tangible link to the past. How could you not tell stories about a site this old? When you walk through these halls of the palace or the havelis or the temples, you're standing on the same stones that once held great Mughal leaders and modern paranormal investigators. All of these places, they're metaphorical portals in time. They're the legacy of a people who have disappeared but still exist. not as spirits or bhutas, but as historical narratives and fireside ghost stories, written, rewritten, and whispered in the dark. That's the story of Bhangarh Fort.
Nice.
I love it.
Now, weren't you telling me that other people died there, or that there's rumors that people died there?
There've been a lot of rumors that I could not confirm.
Okay.
There was one of people who had investigated at night and then were driving back and were in a car accident.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, there's not a ton, especially in modern day. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure that during the 1600s, people died there.
Sure,
and we
I guess
don't really
have
the records of that. But
okay.
Yeah.
I guess I was expecting stories of tiger attacks and things because I thought that was a thing.
No, I don't believe that there are any confirmed tiger attacks within Bhangarh itself.
They're just in range.
They're just in range.
Yeah. I find that so hard to believe. Like I'm paranoid. Mm-hmm. I would be positive that there would be like a tiger attack every like couple of months or something by somebody hanging out there.
Well, they close the site. They do keep people off it and stuff. Or they're supposed to. I don't know.
Nat, you like really captured the feeling that you get when you go to really old historical site or any historical site and think about the lives that were lived there in different times and all the people that have passed through before you. It is hard, I think, for people sometimes to sit with the feeling that it's not just about them, that they're in. Mm-hmm. Like, one of the things I love about history is it reminds you that you're connected to the whole world in so many ways that you have no control over. I think sometimes it might be easier for people to just say, oh, this weird feeling I have is ghosts. It must be haunted. But the place is haunted by people, and not just the stories that modern people are telling about it, but it literally is haunted by the past lives of people that have lived there. And I think that that's such a powerful feeling when you start to think about that and like your connection to the through line of like all the people that have lived before you and all the people that will come after you. But I think a lot of people struggle to sit with that, maybe in a secular way, right? So it has to be ghosts or God. And maybe it is like, maybe for some people that's like their spirituality. I don't know. I don't want to yuck other people's yum. But for me, it's just the power of realizing your connectedness. And like, it's not ghosts. It's just your fellow humans living their lives.
Yeah. Every time I go home to my house that I grew up in, which 5 generations of my family lived there before me, I feel such a connection. And the older I get, the more I feel it. I feel like, and I know that people died in certain rooms, and I know that people were born in certain rooms, and I know what happened at that farm, and it's kind of like you go there and you sort of do feel that history, and it's heavy and it's special, and it does feel kind of ghostly. Mm-hmm. Knowing the history of a place is very powerful, and living in it is powerful without the idea of ghosts.
Even just like walking up to the doorstep of a place, like, and looking out the door at a site that someone has seen for years before you, mm-hmm. is really powerful.
It is.
What a good one.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for listening. And
thanks, everybody.
Yeah, taking this trip down the lane to Bhangarh. Next time we'll have something a little bit different for you. So
yeah.
We'll catch you then.
Bye.
All right, thanks, everybody. Bye.
Be safe out there. Next time, you are huddled in a bunker miles underground. The walls packed with humming machines and sparking electricity. A team of scientists swarms around a mysterious cylindrical object, desperate to uncover its alien secrets before they are unleashed on the world. Thanks for listening to Slaying Monsters, the 40 in History podcast. If you like the podcast, there's a couple ways you can show your support. You can tell your friends, you can leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform, or you can head over to slayingmonsterspodcast.com and click on the Support Us button to leave a donation. For questions, suggestions, and other feedback, reach out to us, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com, and stay up to date by following us on socials at Slaying Monsters Podcast. Your support helps us grow, and we are truly grateful to have our listeners and community.